Coming to you from 4,200 feet in the hills of Oregon, it's the voice of Chi-Town, the reddest beard in the high desert, your host of the MOA broadcast, Sam Wilson. All right, folks, we got a great show lined up for you today. Hopefully you are on your way to work or doing something productive today, or maybe even just having yourself a great cup of coffee. I don't know about you, but without coffee, I don't know that I could function in a non-homicidal fashion in society today. Coffee has been a love affair of mine for several years, actually a couple of decades now since I was first introduced to it. Interestingly enough, I did not grow up drinking coffee. In our home, no one drank coffee except for maybe once in a great while. My mother would have a cup, and I don't ever recall my father ever drinking coffee at all. So, which is kind of interesting because I wound up becoming, once I got introduced to it in my late teens, early 20s, I then went on what you might call a bit of a bender that has not ended yet. So, you know, there are obviously a bunch of different ways to make coffee. I don't know about you, but depending on what I'm going to be doing that day, if I've got the time to sit there and enjoy one or two really good cups, I'm going to want French press, or I tell you what really is good, and it's growing on me because when you only want to make one cup and just be done, is the AeroPress. If you haven't tried one of those, you try it out. It makes one cup at a time. It tastes very, very similar to French press, only there is no silt at all. It's really good. Cowboy coffee is probably my absolute favorite when done right, but you know that's not always the most practical at home. French press, AeroPress is good. Nespresso is really good, especially if you don't have much time, you don't want to deal with anything. You pop one of those little, what's it called? The capsule in there. I can't think of what those little things are called in there. And boom, about 30 seconds later, you got a pretty close to espresso type and strength flavored cup of coffee. So that being said, if I'm going to be working like in the shop all day, the absolute best way to go, in my opinion, is the Bunn coffee maker. If you've never tried a Bunn coffee maker, it is the same type of machine that you will find like in restaurants. It's called like a pour-over machine or whatever. And basically it'll brew a whole pot in about 4 to 5, maybe 6 minutes, depending on what size it is. And because it brews so quickly and so thoroughly, it completely saturates the ground. You get much greater extraction. And not only is it fast, by the time you go ahead and pour the water in and turn it on, you can go put your pants on or shoes on or whatever, and your whole pot of coffee is ready to go. But it also fully saturates the ground, so you get a really good, strong cup of coffee. And it is just the way to go if you need like 3, 4, 5 cups. Some days I'll have more than a liter of coffee. I tend to go a little overboard on the coffee. But it's good stuff, can't function without it. All right. Enough about me. Hopefully, like I said, you're on your way to work or you're doing something productive today. You're already at work and you are getting into your groove. Let's get down to the news today. We've got some interesting stories, headlights or highlights, if you will, for the MOA broadcast today. We have Cobra, the shop cat, with us here in the shop, and he is just dying to go exploring, but I got to let him go. I got him hooked up to his tactical vest like he's some little, elite feline soldier here, but he will say hello to the microphone if you wish. Here we go. You ready, Cobra? I'm going to lean you in here, try not to tear up my hands any more than they already are. There you go. That's it. Good boy. Okay, let's get back to the magic. All right, show highlights today. We have a Boy Scout rescue in the California wilderness. Get ready for this one, folks. Vaccine mandates in Florida? Gone. They're out of here, folks. You are out of here, vaccine mandates. We'll see how that plays out, though. A BB-gun-wielding maniac is gunned down next to his mama. And finally, a cash-crazed hooker stone-cold stuns a senior citizen. Let's get into it, folks. We go first to California. This one comes to us via SFGate, the website. Their news site actually got a lot of good stories from them over the years. I enjoy going to SFGate, good website. California scout troop stumbles onto hiker lost in Sierra Nevada. Halfway into a recent week-long backpacking trip, through California's Sierra Nevada, 9 members of a scout troop and their scoutmaster came across a man standing alone in a meadow deep in the immigrant wilderness. He appeared disoriented and didn't have any hiking or camping gear. California Highway Patrol, CHIPS, if you will, the CHP, confirmed the man was Douglas Montgomery. They soon learned the 78-year-old was an experienced outdoorsman and former scoutmaster himself. They also learned he was stranded once he veered 15 miles off of his intended route, lost his backpack and all of his gear, and had been battling hypothermia for 2 days. So they found this guy, and he was just basically standing there moping around and looking disoriented and incoherent in this little meadow, I guess. And I'm not laughing at the guy. It's just, can you imagine you're leading this scout troop on a backpacking trip, and then you just find this 78-year-old dude just standing there staring up at the sky. Fortunately, no serious harm had come to him. He'd been out there for a couple of days, apparently. So once they realized he wasn't all right, they used an interesting word here. The Scoutmaster, Michael James Hay, if I'm pronouncing that, Scoutmaster for Troop 26 out of Santa Barbara. Spent a month there one night, folks. Let me tell you, we'll do that story another time on the MOA broadcast. He was looking really bedraggled, Mr. Hay said. He had cuts all over his hands and was very unsteady on his feet. He was pretty out of it. He had been on Mr. Montgomery, who was on a 2-week-long solo backpacking trip. Several miles earlier, apparently, he'd set his pack down and left to get a better look at his whereabouts in the trail. When he came back, he was unable to find the pack, which contained all of his food, water, and camping gear, as well as a GPS-enabled communication device. So it looks like this guy, Mr. Montgomery, obviously is an experienced outdoorsman, 78 years old, in my opinion, is kind of pushing it to be going on a solo trip, and no disrespect for the elderly at all, but at any age, something can happen to somebody. You can have a medical emergency or just, anything can happen. If you are a little younger, maybe, or in better shape, you may have the strength or the vitality to power through it. At 78, you don't have much of a reserve, and it's unlikely that if they hadn't found this guy, that there would have been a real happy ending, because it sounds like while he was still with it and coherent, you're not going to make it that many days without food, water, and shelter at 78 years old. Fortunately, this was in a pretty favorable weather time of the year. So anyway, his gear was gone. He had a GPS communication device. He did the right thing. I don't know if he told anybody. We've talked about this a number of times on the MOA broadcast. I don't know if he informed anyone exactly where he was going to be, but the bottom line is he was found. The scouts who found him averaged 12 years old, and they were 4 days into a 7-day backpacking trip to various alpine lakes east of the Sierra Nevada town of Pinecrest. So the interesting thing is, in the article, the young scouts, they turned this into a learning experience. And, they obviously were very respectful. From everything I read in the article, they were very respectful of Mr. Montgomery here, the elderly gentleman. But they sat there and started making a checklist of everything they could do to help first responders when they arrived. They saw to the elderly gentleman's needs and took care of him and so forth. And they did a really good job. They did this by the book. So this one had a happy ending. We're happy to report. By the time they found him, though, he was unable to walk without falling over. So this guy didn't have much longer if he hadn't been discovered. They were going to try and send in a rescue team with pack horses to take him out, but it would have just taken too much time and effort and everything else, according to the sheriff's office. So they went ahead. The Santa Barbara Independent reported that Montgomery, wait a second, we're losing, where'd they go? Yeah. They sent a helicopter to airlift him out from the meadow where he had been found in. And the good news is he was picked up by someone. Who was it? I don't know if we saved that information or not, but he was picked up at the trailhead by someone in his family, and he didn't require further medical attention at that time. So that one had a happy ending. But just for those curious, he had Mr. Montgomery, that was the man that was rescued at 78 years of age, had 20 years of experience leading scout troops in that very same wilderness during his time as a scoutmaster. He was an Eagle Scout with Troop 10 in Burlingame, he told the outlet. So there we go. And, this is an interesting thing, folks. If you're, depending on where you're from in the U.S. or if you're from around the world, we have a number of international listeners. So where I live is high desert, and today I had to go mow the lawn, and it's kind of interesting because we have a fairly short summer here at 4,200 feet in the hills of Oregon, and if you ever watch those old westerns and you see them, they're out in the desert and all these guys are wearing like these thick, jackets and coats and gloves and scarves and everything. The high desert is an interesting ecosystem and landscape. Now, up until like June almost, it'll get very cold at night. And it may be, 85, 90, 100 degrees during the daytime. But at nighttime, you may easily find it getting down into the 40s or even into the high 30s in, late May or even once in a great while in early June. So it's kind of an interesting ecosystem. You got to be really careful if you're going to be in the outdoors here, because once the sun goes down, the temperature drops very rapidly. And even though this is technically a high desert, I live very close to a number of rivers and waterways, so water isn't really a problem. Excuse me, but it is just an interesting, it'll be freezing during the night. Like if you weren't in a home, if you were camping or backpacking, you would have to carry along a lot more gear than you might think to stay warm at night and then not need that stuff at all during the day, because it's going to be 85, 90, rarely or occasionally, you might say, in the middle of summer in the hundreds. It's fairly mild as far as the high heat in the summer. And the good news is the humidity is low, but it's an interesting climate. I was really surprised here living in the high deserts of Oregon. I thought there would be more snakes, and maybe there are, but I haven't encountered them. In the last 4 or 5 years here living in the high desert, I've probably seen 2 snakes, and that's a relatively large amount of time spent in the outdoors and in the middle of nowhere. So there you go. That's that. We go back to our news stories. Let's see, where are we going next? We go to Florida. Folks, this is going to be controversial, and I'm not going to comment a lot on this personally. If you recall, during the quote-unquote pandemic and COVID era that we had very recently here in the United States and around the world in the 2020 and 2021 timeframe, roughly, their emotions were running high and people had some very, very strong feelings. We're not going to get that. Let's do the headline. This comes to us from NBC News out of Florida. The Florida Surgeon General says the state will eliminate all vaccine mandates. Florida Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo, and I apologize, Mr. Ladapo, if I'm spelling that wrong, pronouncing that wrong or incorrectly, said Wednesday that the state will, this is a new story, the state will work to eliminate all vaccine mandates, a move that drew condemnation from public health experts. If you'll recall, folks, and we're not going to go down that long, storied road, in 2020, 2021, there were all kinds of mandates coming from everybody. Anybody and everybody that had any kind of authority was issuing mandates about masks and hand sanitizer and vaccines and so on and so forth. It got very controversial, and the biggest issue for most people that weren't, head over heels in love with all kinds of vaccines being forced down their throats was the issue of freedom. Do you have to take this vaccine because the government tells you to? Now, I'm not going to inject opinion. I was just making a statement of fact. Let's move on, though. So we move on to a quote from Mr. Ladapo. All of them. All of them, Ladapo said during a news conference as the crowd stood and erupted in applause in Florida. Every last one of them, speaking of vaccine mandates, is wrong and drips with disdain and slavery. He said the Florida Department of Health will work in partnership with the governor on this issue. He said forcing vaccine mandates is wrong and quote-unquote immoral. Who am I as a government or anyone else? Who am I as a man standing here now to tell you what you should put in your body? Ladapo said. I think that's a misspelling there, thanks to the news article out of NBC. It was Ladapo earlier. Anyway, who am I to tell you what your child should put in their body? I don't have that right. Well, we'll see how this plays out. I am sure this is going to go through courts and all kinds of the court of public opinion and the court of appeals with equal rigor. Florida requires current vaccinations for students going to public school. Those requirements are outlined on the Florida Health website. The state, they want to make it clear, is not banning vaccinations, but one last quote, and then we'll move on. You want to put whatever different vaccines in your body? God bless you. I hope you make an informed decision, Ladapo said. Again, this is the Surgeon General. You don't want to put whatever vaccines in your body? God bless you. I hope you make an informed decision. That's how it should be. So that's that. We will see how that plays out, and we'll report on updated findings. Okay. Let me get a sip here, and then we move on to, this is a horrible story. Okay, we go to Portugal. That's in Europe. For those of you that don't read or write. At least 15 dead, 23 injured after a streetcar derails in Lisbon, which I believe is the capital of Portugal. City says, this is coming to us from ABC News. At least 15 people are dead and another 23 injured after a streetcar derailed in Portugal's capital. Okay, I was right. I probably read the story already. Ha, ha. Officials said death toll rises to 16 as an injured person dies overnight in the hospital. There is nothing funny about that. At least 5 people are in serious condition following the crash in Lisbon, and one 3-year-old child is included in the 23 injured, according to an official. It appears the safety cable on the electric streetcar broke, causing the car to derail, the department said, based on preliminary information. The operating company of the streetcar, Caris, said that all maintenance protocols were complied with, including daily inspections. The mayor of Lisbon declared a 3-day period of mourning during which he offered his sincere condolences. So this is called a funicular, all right? The famed streetcar known as the Elevador da Gloria, is a funicular that travels up and down a steep hill. A funicular, basically, it's one of these rail cars. They're usually counterbalanced, and they travel up and down these cables, all going up hills and mountains and such. So the cable snapped, and the thing, if you see the picture, is horrible. It just crumpled this thing like a tin can. And so that, accounts for the fatalities of the 16 dead and 23 injured. As of this time, all the other funiculars of the city have been suspended for now. So hopefully we'll see how that plays out, and hopefully they get things figured out and back on track. But okay, folks, we go to New York City. Just when you thought New York had earned a reprieve from their violent and bloody reputation, who had momentarily been taken over in the spotlight by the murderous city of Chicago, or as it's known in the streets, Chirac. We go back to New York City and we get the headline coming to us from the New York Post. Long Island cops fatally shoot BB gun maniac after he makes chilling promise to his mother, according to the police. Long Island cops fatally shot a man who charged at them with a BB gun right after he kissed his mother and promised her he would die at the hands of police, authorities said Wednesday. James Rosano, 33, stormed out of his family's house in Carl Place and pointed the BB gun at cops who were responding to a domestic disturbance call at the home placed by his mother, Nassau police said. I'm going to need a sip, folks. This is breaking me all up here. Terrible news. I quote from the article, "Kiss me. I'm going to go outside and die at the hands of police," Rosano told his mother. According to police, Rosano's mother had told a 911 dispatcher just after midnight that her son was drunk, out of control, and refusing to leave, cops said. Rosano's mother had told the 911 dispatcher that after midnight her son was out of control, refusing to leave. Okay, we double printed that. Interesting. Officers arrived and spoke with Rosano's mom in the doorway before Rosano raised what they thought was a shotgun in the dark and dimly lit home, officials said. Officers shoved the mother out of the way and demanded Rosano drop the weapon several times. Then they fired a round into his chest, according to police. He was rushed to NYU Hospital, Long Island, where he was pronounced dead. The gun Rosano had was later revealed to be a Crossman Legacy 1000 BB gun, nearly indistinguishable from a real shotgun. Rosano battled alcoholism and drug use for years and had a lengthy rap sheet and a troubled history, according to police. His prior convictions included burglary, arson, DWIs, and multiple assaults. Just days before the shooting, he was arrested twice. Once in New York City and again in Long Island for allegedly attacking his girlfriend. So, sad story. What do you expect to happen? It sounds like, well, what are you going to do? Let's move on. Speaking of New York City, folks, I don't know where everyone listening lives today, but I currently reside at 4,200 feet in the hills of Oregon. I have lived in New York and a number of other major cities across the United States, coast to coast. And as much as I enjoy coffee, I also enjoy a fantastic and delicious slice of pizza. Folks, let me tell you something. There is certainly decent or maybe even good pizza to be found in Oregon, but in my personal experience, no one from coast to coast across all these fine states here in America knows how to absolutely slaughter a pizza as badly as Oregonians. I have had so much horrible pizza out here that I am gun shy to try pizza at a new place. Every time I read a New York story, I just think about, my goodness, I would love to have a good New York slice of, I won't even name names, I've gone through this multiple times, but Foscati's or Grimaldi's, a number of places. Or if we go to Chicago, we got Lou Malnati's or Giordano's or a number, there's all kinds, but you could get great pizza at a lot of places in those cities. Nobody messes up pizza like Oregon, in my opinion. So it is what it is. Hopefully, folks, let me ask you a favor. If you are someplace that serves delicious pizza, go out there and have a slice for old Wilson today, so that I don't have to bear all of this weight of the torture of horrible Oregonian pizza on my two shoulders alone. Okay, we go to our final story so you can get back on the road or get to work or whatever it is you're going to do. Hopefully you've got some delicious hot coffee to power you through. Here we go. This one takes us to Las Vegas, courtesy of Fox News. The headline first: Las Vegas sex worker accused of robbing and beating a man in a strip hotel room. Let's go to Las Vegas, folks. Oh boy, it just doesn't get any better. We're going to give Florida a break today and check out Las Vegas. A Las Vegas prostitute has been arrested and charged with attempted murder. Attempted murder and other crimes after she allegedly beat her disabled John to near death in a hotel room before stealing thousands of dollars of his cash, according to the police. Normally I wouldn't laugh at a disabled elderly man getting beat. But if you're gonna get engaged with a violent prostitute in a struggle for cash supremacy, I guess you got what you got coming. Oh my God. Napria Wilson, no relation, 26 years old, left the mobility scooter using victim with a broken back and fractures to his face. Oh my God. That's horrible. After a disagreement about payment inside the Caesars Palace Las Vegas Hotel and Casino room turned ugly. According to the Las Vegas Review-Journal, said the local police. Napria, that's the alleged sex worker hooker, allegedly punched and kicked the man several times during the violent midday beatdown before stealing his wallet, which contained around $6,000 cash. The victim, who was in his 60s, was found covered in blood by a responding security officer. This almost sounds like the ShamWow story. If you ever have time, look up ShamWow hooker violent beatdown on the internet. The man told police he had met Napria on the casino floor that morning and solicited her services after winning some money, KLAS reported. Once in the room, he gave Napria $500 cash for her quote-unquote adult fun time services. Police said. Napria took the money and stayed in the room, but after a couple of minutes, she asked the victim for more money. The victim said he had already given her the cash, which led her to becoming argumentative. She then demanded more money again before unleashing the ferocious attack, cops say. The man told cops he had brought a quote-unquote hooker to his room, and she beat him and robbed him. Napria was seen on CCTV footage walking out of the room and into an elevator. She was then captured on video vomiting while getting into a cab, police said. Okay, the sex worker allegedly apologizes to the driver of the cab and tells him she will pay him extra to get out of here and gives him a $100 bill, or it appears to give him a $100 bill from her purse. She went to her apartment complex and was arrested a couple of days later after police reviewed the video evidence. The allegedly prostitute, faces charges of robbery, residential burglary, and battery with regard to the brutal beatdown attack, according to courtroom documents. The judge set bail at $75,000, and she has remained in custody. She was previously charged with attempted murder from a closed case in 2021 and has also been hit with multiple battery charges within the last 3 years, according to court documents cited by the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Do they have, like, hooker reviews on Yelp? That might have saved this poor guy a lot of serious pain and the loss of his $6,000. Oh my goodness. Okay, folks, that's going to do it. We're going to go ahead and sign off there. Hope you have a great day. Work hard. And remember, folks, don't wait to prepare for an emergency. If you wait, it may be too late. If you don't make it out alive, you don't make it out at all. Stay safe out there, folks.